Thank you for being here, for who is already here. And hi, it's good to see you.
Hello. Hello.
For the ones who are already here, if you want to, you can turn your camera on so I can also see who's on the other side. I personally really like that, but if you don't feel okay with that, then that's okay too. I would basically just want to dive into this topic straight away. If you do have any questions, I would love to hear it. And I will try my best to answer them. Sometimes I know that in webinars they get quite big and I might not be able to answer every single detail, but let's see how far we come. And yeah, so my name, first of all, is Irina Verwer. I realized that I didn't introduce myself. I'm a somatic therapist. I'm an Ayurvedic practitioner, and I'm also a yoga teacher for over 2 decades by now. And I am also in perimenopause, which is why I decided to create an entire training or course just about that topic. Yeah, I made a perimenopause course that is not only about what perimenopause is um, and when it starts and when it roughly ends and all of that, but it really also goes into what the most common symptoms are and what you yourself can do to support yourself better in this period of life. So that's what the whole course is about. And for today, I would just want to, just start with a few of the basics and then go into a few things that you already can do when you are in this transitional period of your life to, support yourself better. So perimenopause starts for women roughly when they're around 35 years old already. And first it starts really slow and then it gets more wavy and wavy over time. And of course, 35 is an average. So that doesn't mean that on the day that you turn 35, you're all of a sudden in perimenopause. It's a slow transition. And for some women, it's a bit earlier. For some, it starts a bit later. Perimenopause is really the time leading up to the final bleed. So that's those are all the years that are before the last time you will have your period. If you haven't had a period for a full year, then it's called menopause, which I also touch on in the course, of course, which is one of the main topics. And so perimenopause starts roughly around 35 years old, and then when for most women somewhere between 45 and 55 menopause sets in, so that's when you stop bleeding. Now in this transitional period in life, at first progesterone lowers, which is one of the hormones that support female cycles, and estrogen actually becomes at first way higher than it's ever been, sometimes up to 3 times as high as it's been in your entire life, which is pretty big. And I'm sorry, I'm getting a pop-up that I'm gonna ignore. So because progesterone lowers and estrogen rises at first, this creates a whole lot of different symptoms. And of course, when you're in menopause, estrogen lowers. So then the gap isn't as big. But when you're in perimenopause, first, this gap is really big. So usually in perimenopause is when we see the biggest symptoms, such as mood and sleep disturbances. So insomnia usually becomes a topic when we're in perimenopause. memory loss, night sweats, hot flashes, anxiety, aches, pains, weight gain is definitely also a very common symptom, and more heavy periods and period pain. Now, not everyone gets the same symptoms, and not everyone who is in perimenopause or menopause has symptoms in the same intensity. And so it's quite rare for women to not have any symptoms at all, and it's also quite rare for women to have all the possible symptoms and then also in the biggest intensity. Most of the time we're somewhere in between. And these symptoms, all of those actually can occur at different times during your perimenopausal phase. So sometimes you have, I don't know, let's say a few months where hot flashes are really your main symptoms. And so then all of a sudden it turns into insomnia, and then it turns into aches and pains. It can be whatever, but for most women, it fluctuates. And one thing that is good to keep in mind is that all of these symptoms usually over time fade away. So they become less and less intense the closer you are to menopause. And then also when you are in menopause, you can still have symptoms, but also there it gets less and less intense. And the intensity of your symptoms, that actually is very connected to a whole number of things, ranging from genetics, your general state of health, how your periods were before you started your perimenopausal transition. So especially if your periods were already really heavy, and especially for those of you who have, for example, endometriosis or adenomyosis, then you can, for those women, usually the periods get even more intense. Cigarette smoking is a really big factor, but also stress and past trauma. So all of these aspects play into whether or not you might get symptoms and how intense they will be. And at the same time, for all of these symptoms and for all of these factors that influence these symptoms, there are things that you can do to support yourself better. And that is where, at least in this webinar, I'll focus mostly on Ayurveda. That's where Ayurveda then really comes in. And the reason why I would want to bring in Ayurveda is because I find it such a, let's say, straightforward way of looking at this transitional period in life, and really picking, it makes it really easy to pick what is helpful for you in this specific moment. Because if you have different symptoms, you might also need a different tool to address those symptoms. Probably makes also quite some sense that if hot flashes are your main symptom, you need something completely, or you might need something completely different than when insomnia is your biggest issue. So if you look at Ayurveda, I don't know, how many of you are familiar with Ayurveda? And just raise your hand, I can. Okay, cool. Nice. That's good. So, for those of you who are already familiar with Ayurveda, you know already like how it works, and that there are what the whole system is about, basically. For those who do not yet know so much about Ayurveda, I saw also some people who did not raise their hand. One thing to keep in mind is that according to Ayurveda, everything in life is being influenced by the elements. And there are 5 different elements. So there's earth, water, fire, air, and ether. And these 5 elements are in Ayurveda, they're clustered within 3 doshas. And these 3 doshas, or constitution types, they are called Kapha, Pitta, and Vata. And I know that right now I'm going through this topic quite quickly. I promise you, like in the course I will dive into that way deeper. But for now, just for the sake of this webinar, and I don't want to like basically lose time with going too deeply into what Ayurveda is, I would just keep it at that. So there's 5 different elements, and then these come together in 3 doshas: Vata, Pitta, Kapha. Kapha is made out of earth and water. Pitta is made out of fire, also some water, but for now, let's keep fire in mind. And Vata is made out of air and ether. Now, when we are going through perimenopause and moving to menopause, we are transitioning from a period in our life that is dominated by the dosha, or the constitution type, Pitta, which is mostly fire. It's the time of our life where we really want to establish ourselves in the world, where we want to have a clear direction, where we want to get things done. I don't know. Usually when we're in the Pitta phase of our life, it's the time where we have our first job, where we and our second and maybe our third, I don't know. But where we're building a career, and where we're I don't know, finding out where we want to live. Usually also we find out who we want to live with, like where, like friends, family, partner, all of that. That usually happens in the Pitta phase of our life. I'm saying usually because it's not a 100% of the time. Sometimes it's a bit later, and that's also okay, of course. So, but usually in the Pitta period of our life, we want to like use this fire element to put things out into the world. Now, when we're going into perimenopause and then going to menopause, we are going into the Vata period of our life. So that is the time of life where air and ether starts to become more dominant. And this is the phase of life so where usually you can feel also a little bit more spacious. You don't have to use all your fire to get things done anymore. You can also enjoy what you already created, what's already established. You have some more space around you. Usually, again, not always. But in this Vata period of life, any transitional period of life, by the way, is already creating quite some intensity in the body. And usually you do have some symptoms coming along with it. Now, when we're transitioning into the Vata period of our life, we move into a period of life where air and ether starts to become dominant. And this is an important thing to remember, because air and ether, when you combine the two, they're very spacious. They can go in all directions. There's not really any boundaries holding them together. And if you think of the qualities of air and ether, that's not only spacious and the lack of boundaries, but it's also drying, and it's also a bit rough. It's also quite cold. So all of these qualities that come with Vata, with air and ether, you usually notice in yourself when you are going through perimenopause and moving into menopause. So you will notice, for example, that your hair starts to become drier. You will notice maybe also that your nails and your skin starts to become drier, a bit rough. Wrinkles start to appear just like that. You might notice that also with air and ether increasing, and there's not so much many boundaries anymore, that anxiety is also easier to slip into, because like what you can also think about that probably, if there's no boundaries, the mind can really just go anywhere. And at one hand, that's great because it also gives a lot of creativity. And at the same time, when the mind doesn't have boundaries, it can also create anxiety. So usually when we're in perimenopause, going to menopause, anxiety starts to come. Now also when there's an increase of air and ether, and there is this, and also so much spaciousness that can go into any direction, usually the mind also starts to become very active and just continues to go on and on and on at night, which then leads to insomnia. So you can already see that from a lot of the most common symptoms, Vata is the main driver. This does not go for every symptom. Hot flashes are, in the most part, they're dominated by Pitta. Pitta is fire. So if there's an excess of fire, then usually that's where the hot flashes start. And at the same time, like I said, for most of the common symptoms, so mood, sleep disturbances, memory loss, aches, pains, also period pain, by the way. In most of these cases, Vata is the main driver. And that is also why for today, I would want to focus on Vata. And again, I'm always, by the way, struggling a little bit with a webinar where I feel like, oh, I want to squeeze all of this knowledge into this little time. And I know I'm not going to be able to, but yeah. So just keep in mind, this is very condensed, and there's way more to it. But for today, let's focus on Vata, and then also especially on what you can do as like simple steps to support yourself. Now, if you think of Vata, again, air and ether combined, lots of space, lots of movement, the dryness, the roughness, the coldness. If you think of that, so the last thing basically you want to do is to add more of those qualities. So you do not want to add more coldness and roughness. So for example, eating rice crackers, which are really airy and crispy, and they're quite rough and dry and also cool, that might not be your weapon of choice if you're in perimenopause going to menopause. So if you were so far on a diet of only rice crackers, I would highly recommend you to change that and to add something that is heavier, that also brings the energy a bit more down, something that is soft, something that is moist, something that is warm. So if you have a lot of Vata, if you go through this period in your life, then you might want to focus more on eating soups and porridges and stews, especially if you have the symptoms that are so closely related to Vata. Adding also warming spices, so cinnamon, ginger, cardamom, all of that is really, really a good idea too. Yeah, a good thing to do. Other than that, clothing also, try to keep it soft, try to keep it warm. Lots of layers are actually a really great idea. I'm also discovering that, especially when, aside from the Vata symptoms, you might also have hot flashes. I also noticed that it's really practical to have layers, and then I can just take off whatever is too hot at the moment and put it back on afterwards. So you might also want to, look into like what feels clothing wise really comfortable, what feels cozy, what feels safe. Like if you think of, again, Vata, spaciousness, you want to create safety. You want to create some kind of container around all of this movement of air and ether. So you want to have clothes that feel cozy, that feel warm, that feel safe. And that also goes for your environment. So where you live, like maybe you can take a closer look at your bedroom, at your living room, or all of the rooms in your house, and see where you can add more of these elements that help to calm Vata down. So think again of, like, to calm Vata down, you would want to add things that feel safe, cozy, warm. Vata also does really well with structure. Vata does well with warmth. Yeah, oh, I already said warm. But fluidity in any way. So I already mentioned the for food that it would be more towards porridge and soups and stews. But for example, if you don't think about your living environment, maybe add some more plants that you also need to water quite often. And maybe you can add a diffuser, like with oil. That is also something that helps, or that can support that. Otherwise, a really big one for Vata is routine and structure. And that is also one that is usually for people with high Vata, a really difficult one. Usually for people with a lot of Vata, there's also some kind of a resistance towards having a certain structure and routine. But it's, again, like if there's a lot of space, having a structure gives this container. So it gives some Vata something to relax into. And that is so important. So any type of structure that works for you, which could be anything, of course, but usually it's about getting out of bed roughly the same time every day, having the same morning routine every day, having a similar-ish type of breakfast every day, then and so on and so forth. So eating lunch roughly at the same time, having an evening routine, all of those things create a sense of calm and quietness where Vata can rest in, which is so, so important for Vata in general, but especially after you're roughly 35 years old, then it becomes increasingly important. One of my favorite ways to start the morning actually is to have an entire dinacharya, which is a yogic or Ayurvedic morning routine. There's actually, I'm not going to go into all the steps of it because that would take up a lot of time, but there is an article that I wrote for EkhartYoga about dinacharya on the website, and I'll throw the link later in the chat. Once I take a break from talking, then I can actually go to my browser and copy paste it. And then you can just find it and read it whenever you have time and see what you want to take from that, if you want to take anything. One other really beautiful thing to support yourself, especially when there's a lot of Vata, is to give yourself a massage or to get a massage from someone else. Ayurveda, like in Ayurveda, it's actually recommended to receive a massage by someone else once a month, at least, when you are in perimenopause or in menopause, and to give yourself a daily massage. And this can be a full body massage. I love to do that usually as a part of my dinacharya, so as a part of my morning routine. I massage my entire body every day, basically all of my body. Like I don't every day do my head with my hair because that I don't really want to wash my hair every single day. Oh, thank you, Masha. The link is already in the chat. That's amazing. I love it when things just happen all by itself. So yeah, I do this self-massage and I've been doing that now for over 20 years, and I feel really that that is one of the things that support me most. If you don't want to do it in the morning and you don't have time for a full body massage, I would say then before you go to sleep, at least massage your feet and your belly. That's super grounding, and it also really helps if you do have sleep issues. It brings the energy really nicely down. Massaging the feet can just be done in any way. If you massage your belly, I would suggest doing it in a way where um, you move in a circular motion and then upwards on the right side of your body and down in the left on the left side of your body, so that you're going with the direction of how your intestines work instead of against. So up on the right side and down on the left side, circular motion. And this can be quite strong. It can also be super soft. That's really up to you. But those are the two that I would say, like, oh, if you just want to pick one thing to take away from today, then I would say massage your feet, massage your feet. So I've been talking a lot, and I have way more to say, but I also just want to hear from you. And I saw that there were already some questions in the chat. So the first question that was asked is, do you recommend HRT instead of or in addition to Ayurvedic remedies, or not at all? And honestly, that is a very specific question, in the sense like it depends very much on what your symptoms are. It depends on what's going on with you. I'm absolutely not against HRT, so hormone replacement therapy. And I would not. I'm struggling a little bit with saying something general about something that is such a specific question, but just like as a very general answer, I would say I would combine it with Ayurvedic remedies. So if you would want to use hormone replacement therapy, if that is the thing that supports you well, and I know a lot of people for who that is a really great option, then I would say together with Ayurvedic. So then, if I could if I could repeat the direction of the belly massage, yes, I can. So it's a circular motion, and I'm gonna come up a little bit. Okay. It's the right side up, and then it's the left side down. Right side up, left side down. And I'm saying it like that because I'm personally always struggling with the clockwise, counterclockwise thing. So yeah, I would say right side up, left side down. Then, what Ayurvedic supplements do you suggest for the transition into perimenopause? And that's again actually also a very specific question, in the sense that I do not I would not suggest Ayurvedic supplements as a general, like, for everyone. It's very individual. It's and that's also one of the things that I really like about Ayurveda is that it is very individual. It's very like no two people are the same. And that means that what I need might not be what you need and vice versa. So I wouldn't suggest a general supplement. Um, Also because, for example, I know that Shatavari is, for example, really often suggested. Um, but I know that for people with endometriosis, that's not always such a good match. So for people with estrogen-related conditions, it can actually be not the greatest thing to take, and therefore I wouldn't go into saying, oh, this specific Ayurvedic for everyone. I would try first, like just with the general things, so food, your rhythm, surroundings, um, clothing, routines, all of that, yoga practice, meditation, all of that, and then go into supplements. Um, how can yoga practice support perimenopause? In so many ways. Um, Honestly, that's really true. It's such an amazing tool. So in the course, there's actually with every topic that I'm discussing in the course, so with every chapter, so to say, there is a yoga practice that comes with it. So there's a yoga practice that's especially designed for if you have sleep disturbances. There is a yoga class if you have if weight gain is your main topic. So that is all. I'll address all of that in the course, but just for now, for today, um, again, I'll go back to Vata. So Vata being air and ether, yoga actually not only gives a structure, it gives a direction, but it also a lot of yoga poses, especially the ones that are more restorative or like yin yoga, they also really help to ground and to lower vata, to calm the nervous system, to lower stress levels, and especially because stress and symptoms in perimenopause are also linked. Not it's not again it's not the only thing, not the only reason why symptoms occur, but um, they can definitely get worse if they're stressed. So yoga helps to lower stress levels, and even with just that, it's such a big help for when you're going through perimenopause. I hope that that's an answer to your question. Thanks for your helpful reply to my question about HRT. What do you think about Ashtanga and perimenopause? Also, I am a bit confused as to whether Vata or Pitta dominate in perimenopause. So I'll answer the last one first. Um, Thanks for asking. Um, so we in perimenopause, we are moving from a Pitta period of life to a Vata period of life. So we're in the transition. So during this time, they're usually for, I would say for most women, Vata is higher, but that's not for everyone. So if you already have a Pitta constitution by yourself, if your nature is already very Pitta, if you're already very focused and driven and passionate and um, sharp and sometimes easily irritated or annoyed, then usually Pitta stays a little bit higher for a longer period of time when you are in perimenopause. So yes, it's a transitional period of time. You're going from Pitta to Vata. And you can have symptoms from both. You can have symptoms basically from all of the doshas, but you can have symptoms that are more Vata related or more Pitta related or also more Kapha related. And for today, as I mentioned, I focused more on Vata because that's where most of the most common symptoms come from or have a relationship with. Yes. And then what do I think about Ashtanga and perimenopause? Ashtanga is a very interesting thing, or an interesting thing. That sounds a bit odd, but Ashtanga is an interesting topic, especially in perimenopause, because it is also very dependent on your constitution and your symptoms. So if you have a Pitta constitution and you have a lot of Pitta symptoms, you're basically having hot flash after hot flash after hot flash, and you're sweating through the night, then Ashtanga is not really the best way to go. I know that it's usually one of the most tempting ways to go, but it might not be the best way. It might be better to find a practice that is way more cooling, that is more calming. On the other side, what Ashtanga does have, and which is really beautiful, is this structure. It's like it is always the same. We always do this pose and then that and then that, and so on and so forth. And so that is something where the mind can really relax into and settle into. And that, of course, is then again something where Vata can find some ease in, and which is also, it's at the same time also a very challenging practice, which is then nice for those who have Kapha symptoms or a Kapha constitution. So I don't see Ashtanga as a bad thing in itself, and also not as a bad thing in perimenopause. I would just really say, like, hey, be mindful of which symptoms you have. Do they get worse if you have an Ashtanga practice? If so, then it might be time to listen to your body and choose a slightly different practice. Also, it depends on for Vata, it depends on how high Vata is and which Vata symptoms you have, because Ashtanga is, because it's so heating, it can also be too drying, and too drying creates, of course, also more Vata. I hope that does make sense. Okay, cool. Thank you. I saw the note that it provides food for thought. Thank you. So, are there any other questions? You don't have to type, by the way. If you want to just unmute yourself and ask it, I'm also perfectly. I'm glad it makes sense. I'm always happy when things make sense, because that's my Pitta part that pops up. Pitta loves it when things make sense. Clarity, direction. So for now, I do not see any new questions pop up. If you do have some more, please just let me know. I did see that someone said that they're very Pitta Vata. Yes, I can imagine that sometimes I know that for when there is Ayurvedic webinars or Ayurvedic lectures or courses or whatever, that sometimes it can also be very interesting to see, like, oh yeah, that's where my vata is coming up, or that's where my pitta is coming up. I know that also for myself um, whenever I again and again read things about Ayurveda, it's always very eye-opening. I also saw, oh yes, I do also want to mention that if you are interested in taking the course, that you can use a discount code which is valid for 48 hours, and you will get a 20% discount. And the code is actually really easy. It's my name, Irina. So only my first name. Um, Masha picked that one so that I can actually remember that, which is great. I love that. Um, so then there was a question about what could help for waking up between 1 and 3, please. Waking up at night, I would say, is also again a Vata thing. So I would focus mostly on lowering Vata, and really having a steady evening routine can help. Of course, there's way more that I could say in terms of personal advice, maybe even supplements, but that would be more for a one-on-one conversation, um, which I do also do. So if you would want to, then just write me. But in general, I would say focus on lowering vata, having a steady evening routine, which means you're doing roughly the same thing every night. You're not having any blue screens, including your phone, um, for at least an hour before you go to sleep, so that melatonin actually can do its work. And that is not just helpful for falling asleep, that is also helpful for staying asleep. The belly massage, the foot massage, if you do wake up, um, then I would suggest to, if you feel up for it, to massage your feet. Maybe do a yoga nidra. That at least that helps to also just stay grounded, calm. You can find yoga nidra classes also on the EkhartYoga's website. There's a lot of really great ones. And I know that it also can be really frustrating. I personally, my biggest symptom at the moment is sleep disturbances. So I also really know that that can be horrible. And for me, the evening routine, the not being online really helps. Also, when I do wake up, to really not go online in that time, but do something that is really grounding, really calming. Again, the massaging, yoga nidra, meditation. I sometimes journal a bit. I don't read or anything like that, because um, if you want to still go back to sleep, it's better to avoid too much input. So even if you're not reading on a screen, there's still a lot of input, and that also usually switches on the brain. And in general, it's better to avoid that. And I hope that that answers the question. Then I see someone who said that no or less coffee and alcohol help them a lot, which um, I agree. That is very helpful indeed. One of the reasons, by the way, that it is why it is so helpful is because both coffee and alcohol aggravate both vata and pitta. And since most of the most common symptoms come from those, it makes a lot of sense that lowering the intake of coffee and alcohol helps. Then there's another question about the hormone yoga courses of Dina Rodriguez. Yes, so I took her course in God, I think 2008, could be 2007. It's been a while. And I think that, like, in general, they can be very helpful for a lot of women. It depends on what your symptoms are. So for me, because I have both endometriosis and adenomyosis, the hormone yoga courses are actually not such a great idea, because they actually create more pain than less pain, which seems a bit counterintuitive. So it depends on what symptoms you have when you come to this to those courses. I would say, as a general, if someone has endometriosis, adenomyosis, um, I would not go into the hormone yoga courses. I see the most. Yes, I'm checking I'm checking internally with myself if that is actually true. But yes, I see the most benefit actually from these courses for women who are already past perimenopause and landed in menopause. So for those who have already made the transition and are in menopause, there I really see, like, oh, there it makes a big difference, like a positive big difference. For the women, as I said earlier, I also do one-on-one sessions, so I also work a lot with women one-on-one, and for the women who come to my one-on-one sessions, I see that they benefit most from, like, a tailored approach instead of a hormone yoga course. Especially, again, because estrogen at first gets so high, and while progesterone is low. Yes, I hope that this I could go into this for another hour, I guess, but I hope that this is an answer for now to your question. All right. Are there any other questions? So, I'm contemplating a little bit. Mhm. Um, oh, thank you. There is not a question, but a thank you for sharing knowledge. Oh, and then there is a question, actually. What could you do if you have shift hours and can't have a stable night routine? Oh, yeah. That's I know that that can be really tough. Thank you for asking. I would want to see if it's possible for you to create any type of routine, any type at all. So it might not be a stable night routine, but it might be, um, I don't know, a stable waking up routine. So after you woke up, you always do X, Y, Z. But to create any type of routine, and also if you have shift hours and if you go to sleep, at least before you go to sleep, massage your feet, because that already is a tiny little routine in itself, and you can actually pull that off usually, even if you do have shift hours. And um, having that also already calms the mind and allows the mind also to go into, like, oh, this is what I know. This is what happens before sleeping. So now we move into sleeping. And therefore I would go into that. Creating any type of routine. And if that is not possible, at least massaging the feet. And otherwise finding other ways to calm vata through food, your the place you live in, the fabrics you wear. All right. So if there are no more questions coming up, I would say I would want to end it here. If you do have any question, then please just unmute and ask me or type if you want to. And yeah, I also really love meeting in this way. So thank you. Really like that. I'm very happy that you're all here. Even though we had some technical difficulties and started with a bit of a delay. So thank you for being here. And yeah, also thank you for all the questions and the input. I really appreciate that. And then I hope that you're going to have a lovely rest of the day, rest of the evening, depending on where you are on this planet. And yeah, I hope that there were some things that you found helpful and that you can take with you. And thanks again. Oh yeah, and again, if you want to use a discount code, it's my name, Irina. All right. Thank you.